To Celia Poem by Ben Jonson, line by line explanation with literary devices. Presented by Ms. E. R. Unarada, Assistant Professor of English, Department of English, PSGR Krishnamal College for Women, Coimbatore,
Tamil Nadu, India.
Author's note: Ben Jonson was born on June 11, 1572, died on August 18, OS August 6, 1637, was an English playwright. Jonson's artistry exerted a lasting influence on English poetry and stage comedy. He popularized the comedy of humors. He is best known for the satirical plays Every Man and His Humor, 1598, Volpone or the Fox, circa 1606, The Alchemist, 1610, and Bartholomew Fair, 1614, and for his lyric and epigrammatic poetry. He is regarded as the second most important English dramatist, after William Shakespeare. During the reign of James I, Jonson was a classically educated, well-read and cultured man of the English Renaissance with an appetite for controversy, personal and political, artistic and intellectual. His cultural influence was of unparalleled breadth upon the playwrights and the poets of the Jacobean era, 1603 to 1625, and of the Caroline era, 1625 to 1642. Ben Jonson's work. Ben Jonson's most famous works include the plays The Alchemist, Volpone, Every Man and His Humor, and Bartholomew Fair. He is also well known for his masques for the royal court, such as The Mask of Queens and Pleasure Reconciled to Virtue. Additionally, his poems like On My First Son and To Celia, as well as his prose work Timber or Discoveries, are highly regarded. Plays. The Alchemist, considered one of his most vivid and characteristic works, with a plot recognized as one of the most perfect in literature, according to Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Volpone, a satirical play that features the poem To Celia. Every Man and His Humor, a popular comedy. Bartholomew Fair, another of his best-known comedies. Sejanus His Fall, a Roman tragedy considered one of his greatest dramatic achievements, notes Scribd and Wikipedia. Catiline His Conspiracy, a Roman tragedy, the other major one along with Sejanus. Epicoene, or The Silent Woman, a comedy also known as The Silent Woman. Masks. The Mask of Queens, a masque that introduced the anti-mask. Pleasure Reconciled to Virtue, a masque that later influenced John Milton's Comus. The Mask of Blackness, one of his court masks. Poems. To Celia, also known as Come My Celia, Let Us Prove, the poem appears in both Volpone and his poetry collections. On My First Son, an epigram published in 1616. To Penshurst, a famous country house poem. Prose. Timber, or Discoveries Made Upon Men and Matter, a collection of critical reflections on literature, philosophy, and human nature, published posthumously in 1640. The English Grammar, a work on grammar published in 1640. Song to Celia by Ben Jonson. Read a poem. Drink to me only with thine eyes, and I will pledge with mine. Or leave a kiss but in the cup, and I'll not look for wine. The thirst that from the soul doth rise doth ask a drink divine, but might I of Jove's nectar sup, I would not change for thine. I sent thee late a rosy wreath, not so much honoring thee as giving it a hope that thereat could not withered be. But thou thereon didst only breathe, and sent'st it back to me, since when it grows and smells, I swear, not of itself, but thee. Song. To Celia by Ben Jonson, line by line explanation. 1. Drink to me only with thine eyes. The speaker tells Celia that she doesn't need wine to toast him, her glance alone is enough. Device. Metaphor, comparing a look to a drink. 2. And I will pledge with mine. He says he will return the gesture using only his own eyes, showing a pure, spiritual connection. Device. Parallelism. 3. Or leave a kiss but in the cup. He asks her to leave a symbolic kiss in a cup, as if her kiss could be left behind like wine. Device, metaphor, sensual imagery. 4. And I'll not look for wine. Her kiss is more valuable than wine. He doesn't need any other pleasure or drink. Theme, idealized love. 5. The thirst that from the soul doth rise. His longing for her is not physical but spiritual. It comes from deep within his soul. Devices. Personification. Thirst rising from soul. 6. Doth ask a drink divine. Only a heavenly, divine form of love can satisfy this soul thirst. Her love is elevated to something sacred. Device. Hyperbole. 7. But might I of Jove's nectar sup? He compares her love to nectar of Jupiter, Jove, the drink of gods. Device. Classical allusion. 8. I would not change for thine. Even if he could drink that divine nectar, he would still choose her love over the god's drink. Shows idealization and devotion. 9. I sent thee late a rosy wreath. He sent her a wreath of roses, a symbol of admiration and love. Device. Symbolism. 10. Not so much honoring thee. He didn't send it just to honor her beauty. Create suspense for the next line. 11. As giving it a hope that there. His real intention. He hoped the wreath would gain something by being near her. 12. It could not withered be. He believed her presence could keep the roses fresh, showing belief in her life-giving power. Device. Hyperbole. Magical realism. 13. But thou thereon didst only breathe. She only breathed on the wreath. She didn't return his love. But even her breath is powerful. 14. And sensed it back to me. She returned it, implying rejection or, at least, emotional distance. 15. Since when it grows and smells, I swear. The wreath, after receiving her breath, now grows and smells better than before. He imagines her breath giving it life. 16. Not of itself, but thee. The fragrance is not of roses, but her essence, shows reverence and idealization of her purity. Political and social background of song. To Celia. 1. Written in the early 17th century, Jacobean era. Song. To Celia was written around the early 1600s during the reign of King James I, 1603 to 1625. This period, called the Jacobean Age, was known for a strong royal court culture, heavy patronage for poets, dramatists, and musicians, a taste for courtly love poetry, elaborate language, and classical references. Ben Jonson himself was closely connected to the royal court and wrote plays and masques for King James I. 2. Influence of classical culture and humanism. The Renaissance had revived interest in Greek and Roman literature, ideas of refined, spiritual love, mythology, e.g., references to Jove's nectar in the poem. People in this era admired the classical world, and writers often blended ancient imagery with contemporary emotions. Jonson, a highly educated poet, brought classical refinement into English poetry. 3. Courtly love tradition. Socially, poetry at the time often followed the courtly love tradition where the lover praises the beloved from a respectful distance. Love is idealized, spiritual, and rarely fulfilled. Women are portrayed as pure, inspiring, almost divine. Song. To Celia fits this tradition perfectly. The speaker admires Celia intensely but receives no return of affection, reflecting the conventions of refined court society. 4. Social position of women. During this period, women were expected to be modest, virtuous, and distant. Public flirtations were common in poetry, but not socially acceptable in real life. Poets often addressed imaginary or symbolic women to express emotions safely. Celia in this poem is likely a symbolic figure, representing ideal beauty and virtue rather than a real woman. 5. Culture of gift-giving and symbolism. The poem mentions a rosy wreath, reflecting a real social custom. Lovers exchanged symbolic items. Objects like flowers, cups, wreaths, and tokens carried emotional value. Courtly romance was often expressed through symbolic gestures rather than physical contact. This ties into the poem's imagery of the wreath that carries Celia's essence. 6. Ben Jonson's personal context. Jonson was a poet, playwright, and satirist, known for his intellectual approach to poetry. Part of a literary circle and admired by other poets, the sons of Ben His social background as a court writer influenced his elegant style, emphasis on classical allusion, and themes of refined love. Literary devices in song. To Celia. 1. Metaphor. Comparing two unlike things without using like or as. Drink to me only with thine eyes. Eyes are compared to a drink. The thirst that from the soul doth rise, spiritual longing, is compared to thirst. Jove's nectar. Her love is compared to the drink of gods. 2. Hyperbole. Exaggeration for effect. Since when it grows and smells, I swear, slash not of itself, but thee. He exaggerates that the returned wreath now smells like her. Her breath giving life to flowers is also exaggerated. 3. Allusion. Reference to mythology/history. Jove's nectar. Jove equals Jupiter, king of Roman gods. Nectar equals drink of immortality. This elevates Celia above even divine pleasures. 4. Symbolism. Objects represent deeper meanings. Cup, symbol of love. Wine, physical pleasures. Eye-to-eye toast, spiritual connection. Rosy wreath, devotion, admiration. Her breath, her purity, soul, essence. 5. Imagery. Descriptions that appeal to the senses. Visual imagery. Drink to me only with thine eyes. Olfactory smell imagery. Since when it grows and smells. Tactile imagery. The rosy wreath symbolizes soft physical contact. 6. Personification. Giving human qualities to non-human things. The thirst that from the soul doth rise, the soul is given the human action of being thirsty. 7. Paradox. A statement that seems contradictory but makes sense. Preferring a look to a drink. A wreath gaining life from someone's breath. This shows the tension between physical and spiritual love. 8. Parallelism. Similar structure in consecutive lines. Drink to me only with thine eyes, and I will pledge with mine. Creates musical rhythm and harmony. 9. Apostrophe. Addressing someone absent or idealized. The entire poem is addressed to Celia, who does not respond. 10. Conceit. Extended metaphor. A long, elaborate comparison. Two main conceits run through the poem. Love as a drink/thirst. Eyes, drink. Soul, thirst. Nectar, love. Celia's breath giving life to the wreath. These make the poem metaphysical in quality. 11. Repetition. Used for emphasis and rhythm. Words like drink, thirst, and wine repeat, stressing the theme of spiritual nourishment. Short summary structure. 2 stanzas, 8 lines each. Lyrical, musical arrangement. Narrative movement from spiritual love to the wreath incident. Form. Lyric poem/song. Simple rhyme scheme. ABCDF. Iambic rhythm. Classical allusions. Structure, form, and tone of song. To Celia. 1. Structure of the poem. 2 stanzas of 8 lines each, octaves. The poem is divided into 2 balanced stanzas, each with 8 lines. Each stanza presents a different idea. Stanza 1. Spiritual love, using the imagery of drink, eyes, and nectar. Stanza 2. The rosy wreath and the idea of unreturned love. Simple, lyrical structure. The short, musical lines make the poem feel like a song. As the title suggests, the structure enhances rhythm, clarity, and emotional flow. Narrative progression. The poem moves in a sequence. Request for spiritual love. Comparison with divine nectar. Sending the wreath. Receiving it back with only her breath. This gives the poem a gentle storyline. 2. Form of the poem. A lyric poem. Song. To Celia is a lyric expressing personal feelings of love, admiration, and longing. Song-like form. The title song indicates that it was meant to be sung. The language is smooth, rhythmic, and musical. Rhyme scheme. The poem follows alternating rhymes in both stanzas. ABCB/DF, with slight variations depending on edition. This pattern creates harmony and enhances musicality. Iambic rhythm. Most lines follow iambic meter, unstressed plus stressed syllables, giving the poem a steady, flowing beat typical of songs. Classical influence. The references to Jove's nectar and idealized love give the poem characteristics of Renaissance humanistic poetry. 3. Tone of the poem. Admiring and devotional. The speaker worships Celia almost like a divine figure. He values her presence more than wine or nectar. Romantic and idealistic. His love is pure, spiritual, and elevated. He imagines unrealistic things, like a wreath becoming fragrant from her breath. Respectful and controlled. He does not express passionate or physical desire. Instead, he speaks gently and respectfully. Slightly melancholic. There is sadness beneath the beauty because the love is not fully returned. The wreath being sent back symbolizes rejection. Hopeful but resigned. He finds joy in small signs like her breath, though he knows he cannot have her love. Themes in song. To Celia. 1. Spiritual and idealized love. The poem presents love as pure, spiritual, and elevated above physical desire. The speaker is satisfied by Celia's glance rather than wine. Drink to me only with thine eyes. This shows that his love is based on the soul, not the body. Her presence alone is enough to nourish him emotionally and spiritually. 2. Unrequited love. A quiet sadness runs through the poem. The speaker loves Celia deeply, but she does not return his affection. She sends back the wreath. She gives no sign of emotional acceptance. Her breath is the closest he gets to intimacy. This expresses the pain and beauty of unreciprocated love. 3. The power of beauty and purity. Celia's beauty and essence are portrayed as transformative. Her breath is imagined to keep the wreath fresh, since when it grows and smells not of itself, but thee. This suggests her purity is almost magical, able to give life even to flowers. 4. Classical and divine love. The poem uses classical mythology to elevate the beloved. Jove's nectar, drink of the gods. By saying he would not trade her love even for divine nectar, the speaker places Celia's value above the gods themselves. This reflects Renaissance admiration of classical ideals. 5. Symbolism of gifts and emotional communication. The poem explores how lovers express feelings through symbolic actions. Cup, emotional offering. Wreath, admiration and invitation. Breath, her essence or spiritual presence. These symbols show how love in this poem is communicated subtly, not directly. 6. Contrast between worldly pleasure and emotional fulfillment. Wine symbolizes earthly pleasure, but the speaker rejects it. And I'll not look for wine. Instead, emotional and spiritual joy from Celia gives him greater satisfaction. This shows the theme of inner fulfillment versus outer pleasure. Idealization of the beloved. Celia is not presented as a real, human figure but as an idealized, almost divine woman. This is typical of Renaissance and courtly love tradition. The theme highlights her perfection, his devotion, the distance between lover and beloved. Critical analysis of song. To Celia by Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson's song, To Celia, is one of the finest examples of Renaissance lyric poetry, blending classical refinement with emotional delicacy. The poem is short, musical, and deeply expressive, presenting love not as a physical impulse, but as a spiritual, elevated experience. Through idealization of the beloved, Jonson explores the tension between human desire and unattainable love. 1. Exploration of spiritual versus physical love. The central theme of the poem is spiritualized love. The speaker rejects physical pleasures, symbolized by wine, and instead seeks fulfillment through Celia's presence. Drink to me only with thine eyes. This line shows that a mere glance from her satisfies him more than any worldly delight. The body's thirst is transformed into a thirst from the soul, which requires a divine drink, meaning love that is pure, transcendent, and above physical desire. This elevates the poem beyond sensual admiration into a kind of worship. 2. Influence of classical ideals. The poem reflects Jonson's classical education. His reference to Jove's nectar shows a deliberate comparison between the love of a mortal woman and the pleasures of gods. B.Y. saying he would not trade Celia's love for divine nectar, Jonson elevates her status. She surpasses pagan deities. Her affection is more valuable than immortality. This classical allusion gives the poem a Renaissance humanist tone and connects personal emotion with grand mythological imagery. 3. Idealization and unrequited love. Although the speaker adores Celia intensely, the poem strongly implies she does not return his feelings. The wreath he sends is returned. But thou thereon didst only breathe, and send'st it back to me. Her breath preserves the wreath, but symbolically, she has not accepted him. This creates a quiet sadness under the poem's romantic surface. The speaker transforms rejection into admiration by believing that even her breath gives life to the flowers. This shows his devotion, his tendency to romanticize, his refusal to acknowledge emotional distance. Thus, the poem expresses the bittersweet nature of unrequited love. 4. Symbolism of gifts and rituals. The poem uses objects, cup, wine, wreath, to express emotions indirectly. This reflects the courtly love tradition of Jonson's era, where lovers communicated through symbolic gestures rather than open declarations. The cup represents invitation and desire. Wine symbolizes physical pleasure or worldly joy. The wreath symbolizes admiration and purity. The transformation of the wreath after her breath symbolizes how a beloved can transform even ordinary things through their presence. Although the ideas are profound, Jonson uses simple, musical language. The short lines, balanced structures, and smooth rhythm make the poem almost like a song, hence the title. Phrases such as "drink to me only" and "rosy wreath" have a lyrical, delicate flow. The poem's tone remains gentle, respectful, and controlled, emphasizing emotional restraint rather than passionate outburst, a hallmark of Jonson's style. 6. The metaphysical quality. While Jonson is not strictly a metaphysical poet, this poem shows metaphysical features. Extended conceits, love as drink, spiritual thirst, intellectual playfulness, fusion of thought and emotion, elaborate comparison. These qualities place the poem alongside metaphysical lyrics of the period, though Jonson's style is more classical and refined. 7. The poem's lasting appeal. Song. To Celia remains popular because it expresses love with dignity and beauty. It blends emotion with artistic elegance. Its imagery, "drink to me only with thine eyes," is timeless. It reflects universal feelings, desire, admiration, longing, disappointment. Even today, the poem speaks to the idea that true love is more spiritual than material. Conclusion. Ben Jonson's song, To Celia, is a masterful lyric that combines classical grace with emotional depth through spiritual longing, idealization of the beloved, symbolic imagery, and refined musicality. The poem portrays love as noble, pure, and transcendent. Yet subtly touched by the pain of unreturned affection, it stands as a hallmark of Renaissance love poetry and remains one of the most cherished short lyrics in English literature. Thank you so much for patient listening to this audiobook, and stay tuned to listen to another audiobook. Bye. Take care and have a great day ahead. See you guys.